Today is December 13th, 2012. My name is Joe Todd. This is an interview with Kenneth Conrad in Manford, Oklahoma. Sir, where were you born?
Kansas City, Missouri.
And when's your birthday?
7/23/45.
Who's your father?
Dr. E.C. Conrad.
And your mother?
Well, of course, it was Mary Lou Lotterette, or Mary Lou Conrad. Then she remarried, and it was Lotterette.
Okay. Did you go through school in Kansas City?
No, sir, I didn't. We moved up to St. Joe, Missouri for several years. Then we moved, no, it was north of St. Joe, but then we moved to St. Joe and went to school there.
Mm-hmm. What year did you graduate?
1966.
1966. From St. Joe High School.
No, sir. Quinton High School.
Quinton High School. I'm sorry. Is that Quinton, Missouri?
Quinton, Oklahoma.
Quinton, Oklahoma. Now,
31 miles south of Eufaula Dam.
Now, when did you move to Oklahoma?
It'd be about 4 years, 5 years before I graduated. Or maybe 6 years before I graduated. Because I was living with my mother, then I moved down with my dad. Okay. That's when I moved to Oklahoma.
Okay. Okay.
Went to school there. Did my last 4 years,
okay.
Freshman on to senior at Quinton High School.
Okay. What type of work did your father do?
He was a DO, doctor.
Okay. What did you do for recreation in high school?
Believe it or not, I built model cars. AMT model cars.
Mm-hmm. You play sports?
I played basketball 1 year, and I played football a year.
Have a good team?
We had a team. I think we got a little better team now than we did back then.
How big was Quinton in those years?
Population of 1,000.
1,000. How many movie theaters in Quinton?
There was none.
There was none.
I think there had been one at one time, but it was closed by the time we moved there.
Okay. Okay. Now, in the early 50s, there was kind of a drought, depression in this area. You remember that?
No.
Okay.
Now, you was asking me about my school.
Yes.
And about Quinton.
Yes.
Before we moved to Quinton, we lived in Antlers. And what brought that up, reminded me of that, is you was asking me about a movie theater.
Yes.
Well, we had a drive-in outside of town,
mm-hmm.
and then a theater downtown. And I got to where I was running projectors for the movies when I was going to school. It's kind of a weekend part-time job.
Mm-hmm. What was the name of the movie, the theater?
Oh, I have no idea. That's been a long time ago.
And that's Pushmataha County.
Push County, yes,
Yep.
Push
Yep.
Tahoe.
Mm-hmm. How big was Antlers in those years?
It was bigger than Quinton.
Okay.
By far, but it's
When did you get your first car?
my first actual car. First car that I got for myself, so I joined 66, probably 67, 1967, 1968, more 1967.
Okay.
I was stationed out at Colorado Springs at Fort Carson, Colorado.
You have a car in high school?
No.
How far from the high school did you live in Cleveland?
Just down the alley.
1,000 people is probably not very big.
No. It was, just block down, just go out the back door and down the alley.
Okay. Who's your favorite teacher?
You know, there were several good teachers, but you asked me that, I gotta say Miss Rayburn. She was a English teacher, and she was older, and she's, you know, I kind of scanned through school on by the skin of my teeth, and she was always very helpful and all. And then there's Mrs. Peterson, and then our FFA teacher.
Was this in Quentin?
In Quentin.
Okay.
My FFA teacher, we called him Doc, and Mrs. Peters, her husband was the principal, and but the two of them, the Mrs. Peters and Doc, were
The FAA.
Yeah. FFA,
FF.
Future Farmers of America.
Yes. So, did you live on a farm?
No, lived in town,
Okay.
and of course we all had to have a project.
Yes.
And mine was wiring the garage for a two-way switch.
I was going to ask what your project was.
Yeah, it was, and so I got the electrical part because I wired up the garage and everything, where you can go in one door and out the other and turn on and off the lights.
Okay. So you graduated in '66.
Yes.
You recall the Gulf of Tonkin incident?
The who?
The Gulf of Tonkin incident.
No.
When Johnson was president, and they said the North Vietnamese ships had attacked American ships in the Gulf of Tonkin off Vietnam. That was in '64 or '65, '64, '60.
No, I remember JFK.
Yeah.
Being assassinated, and Johnson took over.
Where were you when he was assassinated?
I was at school.
Okay.
And then we, gathered down at the gathering hole downtown, and was talking about it. But
What was your reaction when you heard that he'd been assassinated? The president was dead.
I felt sorry for the family. I felt for the country, because I think that he was one of our better presidents, and I'm sure that's why he was assassinated.
So, did you enlist or were you drafted?
I enlisted
When?
in March, November 6th, I believe it was, of 1966. Enlisted for 3 years
In the Army.
in the Army.
Why'd you join the Army or the Navy or the Marines?
I don't know. I had an ex-father-in-law that was kind of putting some pressure on me, and he's on the draft board, and I knew I was fixing to go, so I wanted to do something I wanted to do, and the Army was the one that did it with.
Where'd you go for your basic training?
Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, better known as Fort Lost in the Woods.
Yes. Tell me about basic.
It was long, it was hard, best thing that ever happened to me. I think every young man should go through basic after college or after high school. I think it taught me a lot, and helped make me a better person.
What's your most vivid memory of basic?
My most vivid is we was out on bivouac, and we'd been shooting that day and having classes and everything, and we had to spend the night out in the field. We had our little tents that we set up, and the orders were that we should set up, break down, and go back into base because it was freezing cold out. Our company commander disobeyed and kept us out there all night. The next morning, we got up and shipped back to base by buses, not trucks, but buses. And we didn't have that company commander much longer. But Yeah, that's my most vivid. I think back about basic, and I think about that, but then there's so many other good things that came out of it, like yes sir, no sir, and to officers, and never to enlisted sergeant.
Yes, yes. You pull KP?
Oh yes.
Tell me about KP.
Get up early, do dishes, peel potatoes, clean, just, and you work late. You work all 3 meals during the day. Fortunately, I only had to do that a couple times.
What rifle did you fire in basic?
I want to say M1.
M1 or M14?
It had the flat top, and you crank it back. It might have been 14.
Now the M1 is World War I in Korea. The M14 was a.
I know it. After we got out, that's the last I saw that gun.
Yeah. What'd you fire? Expert? I mean, what'd you qualified?
Yeah, I know what you're asking. It wasn't, perfect, but I did, I did the qualifying, and just maybe a little above.
I think it was marksman, sharpshooter, and expert.
Must have been sharpshooter.
Okay, that's the middle one. Yeah.
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 But I know I wasn't marksman. I wasn't that good.
Yeah. Yeah. Basic lasted how long?
Seemed like forever, but it was a couple months. Of course, we had Christmas in there, and so we started right after enlisted, shipped out straight from enlisting to basic, and got out of basic first part of the year. Then went to Fort Rucker, Alabama, and down there for a while, and we hadn't really been assigned anything yet, and I got word that my divorce was going through, and so I got a leave to go home, get my divorce, and come back, and then I did my AIT.
Okay. Now, did you discuss or told about Vietnam in basic or Fort Rucker?
Basic, oh yeah, was because Vietnam was going on.
Yes.
And they were training us for Vietnam.
Any specific training for Vietnam in basic?
Camouflage, face. Being specific. Basically, basic was for Vietnam.
Yeah. Tell me about the gas chamber.
Oh, forgot about that. Well, we went in, had to put on our mask with gas going on. Then we'd go in with our mask on, then sitting there until we told we had to come out to pass it. Yeah, it was no fun. I was able to do both of them on the first try, and get in, get the mask on and stuff, and then have the mask on, then stay. It seemed like it took them 5 minutes to tell us so we could leave the chamber after we'd taken our mask off. And they wanted to make sure we got a good dose.
Yeah. Was that tear gas?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember that.
Oh. Yeah. Miserable.
So you went to, what did you do at Fort Rucker?
I took AIT there.
AIT in?
Helicopter mechanic.
Okay. Tell me about mechanic school.
Went to school every day. They taught us about different parts of the helicopter and how to work on it, and the functions and the working of it.
What helicopter?
Well, I ended up flying after I got to Vietnam on a UH-1H, and they were H models
That's the
that we
Huey.
mostly worked on. in AIT. Did the basic things, and to find out what makes it tick, and how to take it apart and put it back together, and using the safety bolts that they had with the safety wires to make sure you get the wires on straight where they hold the nuts tight instead of letting them loosen up, and the different parts of the helicopter.
Of course, how does a helicopter differ from a fixed wing?
A fixed wing has a propeller on the front or on the wings, and a helicopter has the two blades for Hueys on the top. Then have the rotor on the rear.
Okay.
That's the rotor helps you steer from left to right, and the blade on top, the two blades on top, up and down. And of course, if you tilt the blades over a little bit, then you get your speed.
Yeah. Helicopter school lasted how long?
I don't recall.
Okay. And after you graduated helicopter school, where'd you go?
Fort Carson, Colorado.
What'd you do there?
Well, I was assigned to a company that worked out the air base, out the airfield, there at Fort Carson. It's kind of up on a plateau, and it had a big hangar there, and had some helicopters in there, and I'm trying to remember whether I must have been stationed barracks in the hangar upstairs when I first got there. Then we moved into town, was barracked on base. But we'd go out there and work, and I was working in communications, running field lines and field phones and stuff like that.
Now, you were a helicopter mechanic and
Yeah.
running field phones?
Yeah, I thought it was crazy too. But they gave me because it was in one of the G groups, and so I had to pass background for
Now, you
clearances
say
and stuff.
G group, what is that?
Like G1, G2,
Oh, okay,
G3.
okay. Which one are you in?
It must have been one of the lower groups. I don't know if the lower was G1 or
Now,
3.
G2 is, that's all the top secret stuff. the secret
Okay,
stuff.
we weren't in all the top secret.
G3 is training. G1 is just administration, all that.
Yeah, because we had worked on the
Yeah.
communication stuff. I think it was just G1,
Okay.
and they had some stuff that couldn't talk about. But
Okay. How long were the wires you were laying? How far?
oh, for how far we had to do it. I only had a field operation one time, and I don't recall. That wasn't on my duty to run the wire.
Okay.
I was in the trailer,
Okay.
working the stuff in there, hooking it up inside, and
What telephones did you have?
the old crank ones. This is back in '67. Late, maybe, early '67, middle '67.
Now, ever have trouble with the wires being broken out in the field and all that?
Yeah, but I didn't have to go out and fix them.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No.
Okay.
But I was trained how to fix them.
Combo wire is wonderful.
Oh yeah. If it's working.
Yeah. You at Fort Carson how long?
Close to a year.
Okay. What's your most vivid memory of Fort Carson?
There's a warrant officer who's our commander, our lead person, and he'd been in a helicopter accident. And he talked me into getting a vehicle license where I could drive him down to base to the doctors and for different things, be his driver. And I did. And when they trained me for that, they tested me for driving a bus. So, which turned out to be, I ended up driving a bus after a short time instead of just driving the warrant officer. And I'd work one day and off two, and had a spot in the barracks where my stuff stayed, and I had a place in town for those 2 days. But,
what's the city next to Fort Carson?
Colorado Springs.
Okay.
And military wasn't too appreciated there.
I was going to ask, what was the attitude of the local people?
We weren't liked. It's another one of those things, when you leave base, you leave your uniform on base.
What about the Air Force Academy cadets?
Never really heard too much about them, but I think they were appreciated a little bit more than we were.
Yeah. Okay. You at Fort Carson how long?
Almost a year.
Okay.
Yeah, because I went from there to Vietnam.
When you got orders for Vietnam, what'd you think?
No. Didn't want to go. I thought it was a political war. I still do. I had a swollen ankle, and I'd gone to the doctor with it, and being truthful, and maybe I could get out going, but no, they said it was all right, and still got the swollen ankle, and but I went home on third day leave, and of course it was snowing in March, and I almost didn't get to leave Quentin, go up to Monette, Missouri, where my mother lived, and see her before I left. I ended up, Oklahoma roads were horrible. I got into Missouri, and they had them plowed, big banks on the side of the road, and got up to the country road where go back to our place, and had a cousin, uncle, something that had a gas station up there, and that's where I left my car, and my stepdad came up on tractor and got me and took me back down to the house. But spent some time there, then went back home, then went to Washington, or went back to Colorado Springs and shipped out to Washington State.
Fort Lewis?
Fort Lewis. And
how'd you travel to Fort Lewis?
Flew.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it flew. I'm sure it wasn't on the ground.
Yeah.
But wrong time of year.
Yeah.
So then shipped out for Vietnam. I got to spend a night with my aunt and uncle up there, just outside of where'd you say it was?
Fort Lewis.
Fort Lewis.
Yeah.
And they lived in a small town near there.
Okay.
And then shipped on out to Vietnam.
Tell me about going to Vietnam.
Took a big plane, and we flew over. Flying in and landing was not a whole lot of fun. I believe it was Cameron Bay we flew into.
Recall the date you landed?
March 6th. Wait. If you hadn't asked me, I could have told you. It was the end of March of '68.
You said landing in Vietnam.
Yeah.
What happened?
Um, it wasn't too bad there, but there was talk about we'd been shot at, but wasn't hit. The aircraft wasn't hit.
Mm-hmm.
But we landed and was put up for the night, and then shipped out to Anke.
Okay, hold on. One second. So how long were you in Cameron Bay?
Probably overnight.
Okay.
Then went up to Camp Evans, which is the main base for the 1st Cav.
Okay. Camp Evans or Anke?
Or Anke, I'm sorry. Went to Anke.
How'd you travel to Anke from Cameron?
It was one of those thin planes that had the seats on it.
That C-1, Caribou?
Caribou.
Yeah.
Caribou, that's what I was thinking. Went on the Caribou, and we were shot at, and the aircraft was hit. Small grounds fire. Yeah, got my cherry busted before he even hit ground.
Where was the airplane hit?
It wasn't on the fuselage, because I don't think anybody was hit inside the plane, but the aircraft was hit.
Okay. So you land in Anke on the golf course. That's what we call the airfield.
Oh, okay.
The golf course.
But, Anke. I spent a couple days there because I had to pull guard duty one night up there, and we had more training before we shipped out to our bases.
What did you think about being in Anke in Vietnam?
I was not happy about it.
Yeah.
I didn't like being out of the United States. I didn't like being over there where there's war going on and people dying. And my theory was, if I make it the first 6 months, the last 6 months, I'll be doing good. And I'm here talking to you, so I made it both times, through both parts.
Now, what unit were you assigned to?
1st Squadron, 9th Cav.
1st Air Cav Division.
Yes, sir.
Now, was their headquarters in Anke?
I think their headquarters was at Camp Evans.
Camp Evans, okay.
Because I went up and joined the company up there.
Okay, now how'd you get to Camp Evans?
I think it was by plane, and it was more like one of those that you could carry supplies on.
C-130?
Yes, C-130s. And flew into Camp Evans and checked in and started my career there in Vietnam.
Describe Camp Evans.
Camp Evans. Well, it was kind of on a hill, and our runway was just kind of down from our barracks area, and to the, I'm thinking to the north, or just to our north, or what I call north of us, was open field, and the Seabees moved in there and set up and was doing a lot of work over there, and they had their base over there. As far as a military base, we had, chow hall, everything, you'd need.
Describe your quarters.
We was in a tent, and I got lucky. Whoever place I bunked at, it had it dug down in the ground, had ammo boxes full of sand, making walls, and then had tarmac, like you put it down for a runway on the field. On top of that, sandbags, more tarmac, more sandbags. And it's kind of like I went down into a little compartment.
Sounded like a bunker.
It was inside the tent.
Yeah. How large is the tent? Is it a GP medium or?
There's probably 10 of us in there.
Okay.
8 to 10.
Yeah, that was a GP medium. That's a big tent. Yeah.
It was pretty good size.
Yeah. Okay.
I had one of the only bunkers like that in there. Some of the others were a little better built. I don't know who was there before me, but he was wanting to go home too.
Yeah. So, what was your job over there? What'd you do?
When I first got there, I was a helicopter mechanic.
What do you do?
And I worked on helicopters, you know, from front to back. The engine, blades, you know, whatever needed to be done. Was trained to do Fort Rucker. I spent a month doing that. And because of my size, you know, 6 foot something, and at that time I was a lot slimmer than I am now. But I was given this duffel bag full of straps. And the sirens went off and we had a down bird. I went along on the helicopter and I was put down on the ground, sometimes close, sometimes far. But we had ground troops that would go in too. Mm-hmm. And I'd be the one that would tie down the rotor blade to the rear near the rotor, tail rotor, and then get up on top of the helicopter and put slings on the head of where the blades hook on, and the transmission coming up out of the helicopter. Put slings on that, then hold them up in the air. When the big helicopter come along, I hook on, make sure it gets stretched out, almost straight, so it didn't hang up anywhere, and I jumped down. Because I didn't want to take a trip on the helicopter through the air.
Now, I heard about static electricity on those helicopters. Whenever you're hooking up.
If it happened, I don't know, because I'd hook up, and I'd be holding on to the canvas type belts, or hook, or straps, and just hook it onto the belt, or onto the hook. Mm-hmm. And my thought was, get this thing, you know, and get off of it before it left the ground.
Because we were told, never grab a hold of that metal when you're hooking on, because static electricity will come down.
I stretched out, and being 6 foot something gave me a long stretch.
Yeah.
But I had to make sure that, you know, the belt was going to be clear and not hanging up on anything.
Okay. Now, why would the helicopters go down? What was the main reason?
Could be shot down. We had an XO that just flew out of fuel and landed. The only basic thing it did to the helicopter was flatten out the skids, put it straight on the bottom of the helicopter. And I think that was one of the last ones I went out on. No, yeah, I don't know. I went out on several. I was going out quite often. Mm-hmm. And but you go out and just do your job. Mm-hmm. And little did I know, jumping off those helicopters today would be bothering my back. Mm-hmm. I had a doctor at the VA tell me that has caused my back. I've had shots in my back because of it, and he told me that that's what caused it, but he didn't put it down on paper. So, as we said over in Vietnam, St. Louis.
Yeah.
But I've gotten more shots since then, and I just kind of live with it.
Ever go to the sand point?
To what?
The sand point there at Camp Evans to fill sandbags?
No, I guess I missed that point.
You missed the fun.
Huh?
You missed all the fun.
What, filling sandbags?
Yeah.
No.
Have any contact with the local people around Camp Evans?
I mean, locals.
Yeah.
Just they did our laundry and cut our hair, and you see them on base doing different things. You wouldn't see them at night, but you see them during the day.
What was your attitude toward them?
For a long time, I was, okay, these are friendlies, until I found out that they were on base during the day, and then at night they're shooting at you. We'd find them in the wires where they tried to get in base at night. And of course, they didn't cut your hair anymore. I wasn't happy with them. I got to where I wasn't happy with any of them. I tolerate them today. There's so many of them in our country. They give me any flack, I just tell them, why don't you go back home? But that's enough about that.
Yeah, okay. So you were...
So I did this for a month, and I got to go up on some, I guess you call it voluntary missions. One of them, first one I went up on was a sniffer run.
A what?
Sniffer run.
Now what is that?
Okay. The group comes in and they put a sniffing machine or sensor on the bottom of the helicopter. And then they had somebody that was reading what this was picking up. And it was smelling the Vietnamese on the ground. And we weren't Lima, but we weren't real high up either. And we was doing it enough clicks that by the time they shoot us, bullets were going behind us.
Is that treetop level?
Just a little over treetop.
Okay.
Lima's right down on the ground.
Yeah.
Then, treetop. Yeah, we were maybe 25 foot above trees. Maybe 50 at the most, doing this. And then my gunner at the time it was me and the crew chief. We had smokes, different colors, and
these are smoke grenades?
Smoke grenades.
Okay.
And they would call out smoke, and we'd already have one popped, the pin pulled on it like a grenade, but what it did, it was a smoke, and we'd throw it down to the ground. And then we had our gunships that were flying with us, and they would shoot up the area with their Gatling guns, and we had Cobras, and then UH-1Cs, I think they are, just had the crew chief and the gunner and the pilot and co-pilot. And then I was on the UH-1H. And so that's how I got started on getting up and flying.
Now, did you have different colors of smoke grenades?
Yes.
What was each color used for?
We had different colors. So the Vietnamese wouldn't know which color was throwing.
Okay.
And the aircraft, they call a color, and yep, it would acknowledge, or the pilot would acknowledge, or somebody would acknowledge. It might have been the guy that was doing the deal. Okay. Would acknowledge, and that's what their target was going to be. And we did that biggest part of the day, and like morning period, and then we'd go back to base. Shortly after that, a crew chief's position came open. I'd already started climbing on rank, and I became an E4 or Spec 4, and going along. You need me to lean forward.
Oh no.
I was leaning back and getting comfortable, but
no, you're fine.
So I put in for it, and I got it. So I started crewing a helicopter.
What does a crew chief do?
Crew chief does the minor maintenance, on the helicopter. Um, okay, I was thinking of something else. The crew chief does the minor maintenance, changes fluids and checks, make sure everything's okay each day, and especially before flights, checks the blades, make sure there's no nicks or any thing wrong with them. Because if you got a dent in the blade or a nick, it can sure throw you off.
Yes.
Make sure the tail rotor's good. Check your fluid niche. You had a little eyeglass that you could look in. And of course you had a metal detector in there too that would light up and let you know that you had metal shavings in there.
What's the hell hole?
The what?
The hell hole on a helicopter.
If I know, I forgot.
I was told that's a place up you get up where all the filters are, oil filters.
Oh, up, yeah, inside, yeah.
We call it the hell hole.
Okay. Most of the stuff I had was easy to get to. We really didn't get up there. That's when it would go to major maintenance for those type of works. The minor changes, which you had to take the plug out and it drained at another sight glass, and you had to, when you put it back in, it goes back to your training where you had a wire you stick through the nut and then you twist until it gets to your next point, and you tie on to where everything always tightens and not loosen.
Safety wire.
Safety wire. And then when the helicopter flies, you just make sure that things are going, and you fly as a crew chief or as a gunner. So you have an infantry person on the other side that's a gunner, and yourself. He always stays on the helicopter and flies as your gunner. He's got kind of easy duty. He doesn't have to go down on the ground. And I found out the easy hard way about one of your duties as a helicopter crew chief. We'd gone down to Cameron Bay to do some business, and of course we'd go down occasionally, and it might be just me, and it might be me and the gunner and the two pilots, and we'd come back with a ship full of beer, pop, other things. Yeah, those were kind of the fun runs.
Yeah.
That's when I run into my my CO, or my first sergeant CO I had in States at Fort Carson. He'd made major, and he was first sergeant now, he was first sergeant major. He'd made a sergeant major, and they told me when I got back to States, if I was the same base, to look him up, that I had a job. Well, I didn't end up there, so, but we were flying out of Cameron Bay and going back to base, and the tail rotor detector, metal detector light came on, and the captain or the chief warrant officer on the ship calls me and tells me it's on, and what do I want to do? He says, it's your decision, your ship. And I said, go back. Because it's already dark, and I didn't want to be out there in the jungle trying to find a way home. So we went back and spent the night, and then they had a team come out and pull down the tail rotor, the fluid and the metal detector and everything. There's a little bit of stuff there, but not really enough. But I think he told me it was my call, my helicopter, and I think everybody was glad I made the decision I made, because none of us wanted to be out there in the jungle at night. So after they got it all buttoned up, we flew back, and of course, made me think I got a lot more responsibility here than I thought I had. And
Because that helicopter's yours.
yeah, I realized that after that. But I knew I was basically responsible. But my thought was when we was in the air, Chief Warrant Officer, the pilot, was in charge. He is, but he isn't. But yeah. But so I started, crewing and crewed the rest of my time.
What kind of missions would you fly?
Oh, flew all kinds. I did several more of these sniffer missions. I had missions where take our Delta group, because it's Charlie, Delta, and the Delta was the infantry section of our division. And we'd take them out and drop them in the jungle and go back and get them. So we did that. We've run into hot fire going into LZs.
What's hot fire?
We've been fired upon by the Vietnamese.
Okay.
I'm going to go into one instance because we had some good people on that run. We go in and land on like a creek or like a pond bank mound and gather our troops up and get them on board. And we're being fired upon by the Vietnamese, and we get out of there, and we all got out safely. Well, the Chief Warrant Officer had told us that he was going to put us in for accommodations for that, going in on that deal. Before he could or did, he was killed on another mission. And but we got our troops out of there. Nobody was hurt at that time, and that's good enough for me. But then we'd make the refreshment runs like I mentioned a while ago, and whatever needed to be done. The last 2 or 3 months, I was writing home telling Mom, I've grounded myself. I made where I was chief, I guess what you'd say, Chief Warrant Officer, or not Warrant Officer, but I was Spec 5, but I was the ranking Spec 5. I would go into the officers meeting every night and go back and give out the assignments to the other specialists. And I told Mom I was in this position, that I was taking myself off of flight status because I was getting close to leaving. I was still going out there flying. I didn't want her to worry.
Yeah.
So I'm still out there flying, and then another mission that we had that as far as flying that we'd go out and do. The XO at that time was a pilot checker. In other words, he goes out and certifies other pilots. And on one of my first runs before I became crew chief, I'd gone out on one of these check runs with another crew chief and crew. And you're flying along real pretty like, and all of a sudden your throat and your stomach's in your throat and about ready to come out. They do a shut off power to the engine and do an auto rotate. And that is you're here, then you drop to there real quick. And so, yeah, my throat was coming out my mouth and my stomach was coming out. But I got through it. But then after time, the XO was flying my helicopter, and this is not the one that landed on the ground and flattened skids. This is another one that came in. But he would go out and check other pilots, and he'd be flying along, and I had learned by doing this several times, about when he's getting ready, and I'd watch his hands and see when he's getting ready to do it. So they didn't bother me as bad if I knew it was coming. But those that just all of a sudden, yeah, that was. But we would go down on the ground, and he would lock the tail rotor with his pedals, and where the trainee, or the not trainee, the one taking the exam, couldn't use them, and he had to use the top rotors to get us down on the ground. And we'd come in and kind of skid on the skids to a stop, and then, like I say, you just turn off the engine, and the trainee would have to get it all started and going again and everything. So, I learned a lot and appreciated some of the jobs that I had. There's a valley we flew up into that, like I say, it was a valley and peaks on both sides, and you had trees, jungle, and everything going on each side. You had to stay out of them and stay out of the other helicopters away, as well as you're going up in there.
Who posted the airstrikes on the board? Because we had to read the board every morning where the airstrikes are going to be, where you don't fly there.
Well, we didn't necessarily have a board. I would go to the warrant officers meeting that the head man would give out the instructions, who's going to do what. I'd make notes, and I would go back to the crew chiefs and pass out the information.
We had a map of our area, and they would black out the airstrikes on the map.
Oh, okay.
And they said, you don't find this area.
Now, that was all done by the officers.
Okay.
Because they were the ones flying aircraft.
Okay.
I might have seen the board because I know they've had something in there, but I was never informed of what it was.
You get the Ashall Valley.
Yes. I was still in my first month, and I was sent up there to do something about a helicopter or something, and I had a camera and been taking pictures and everything, and while I was over there, and we started drawing fire and incoming. They're shooting rockets in at us and ground fire, and kind of a living hell. It was a little more than the night at Camp Evans. So they were starting to get people out of there on helicopters, and since I was an outsider and all I had was a 45, they got me out of there. And I had a flak jacket on, which I guess did some work when, but heavy, didn't like it. But I had my camera in it, and when I got back to Camp Evans, it was gone. So it was in the valley. When I left it. I left it in the valley, apparently.
Get your case on?
No, I don't recall going to Quezon.
What about Way?
Didn't hit Way.
Tell me about the ammo dump.
Oh, that was it was a good show, a scary show, a scary time. I remember it was like 3 to 4 rockets coming in to hit our ammo dump, our JP4 for the helicopter fuel, blubbers. They hit our fuel supply, and I'm thinking they hit something else in that line. I don't recall. What was scary about me is at my hooch, I could be sitting at the front door of it. Well, I was, after the stuff started coming in, I got out and sat at the door of my hooch, watching the fireworks. That's what we call the fireworks show. And the ammo dump was shooting stuff all over the place. And you just look straight ahead across the airfield, and you can see the ammo dump going up. Off to the left a little bit was the blubbers for that's a big round rubber fuel tank that the JP4 for the helicopters was kept in. Then the tanks for the fuel for the vehicles and stuff went up too. And since I didn't have a vehicle, I don't know how they worked, where they had blubbers or whatever.
They held 10,000 gallons.
Blubbers?
And when they went up...
Oh, yeah. It was a bright night, a noisy night, a scary night. I think I finally went to bed somewhere between 3 and 4. And I feel fortunate that I went to bed. I got up the next morning, close to sunrise, early morning, and I went out, and there's a piece of steel from off they shoot out of a cannon. The head of it is like 2 inches by 2 inches. Wait a minute. Yeah, about 2 by 2, maybe 2.5 by 2.5. Thick steel piece of one of these shells, sitting right where I had been sitting the night before. If I hadn't have gone to bed, I'd have been wearing in me that piece of metal. It was a scary night.
227th lost every helicopter.
They did?
Except one. One was out. They lost every helicopter. Because it blew all night long, didn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It was going good in the morning.
I was on our flight line watching it.
Oh, well, the flight line was down, and you go up to our hooches. Hooches are tent where we basically called home and lived. Then kind of down off to the right a little bit is where the maintenance area was on the helicopters. But I was kind of up there on the hill looking down across the tarmac at ammo dump going and the blubber's going. So yeah, and then wake up the next morning and go out, because I was only in bed for 2 or 3 hours. And sometime that 2 or 3 hours, that piece of metal hit where I was sitting.
When we got up, there were rounds all over the place.
Well, we didn't have so much rounds.
Oh, we did.
As we had metal everywhere.
We had unexploded rounds that were blown out, and EOD worked for days getting all that stuff.
Oh. As far as our helicopters, I think most of them were uninjured. Of course, what we did for that day was we inspected for any damage.
Our helicopters are not damaged, but blew all the windows in. We had to replace all the windows and the doors on our helicopters.
Huh.
There's no damage, but
yeah. Well, ours, as far as I recall, ours weren't damaged in that manner.
Yeah.
And I feel fortunate because now when we flew into Cameron Bay and had to go back in and spend the night, they had us in had bunkers up on each side of the helicopter. I'm in an interview. That's the wife. And she knew it was doing this. She probably didn't figure it was going to be this long. Yeah. But they had bunkers that they put a helicopter in. For us. We didn't have that because, like I say, if the siren started going off daytime, or evening time. And somebody had birds out. When the siren went off, that meant there was a bird down, and they blasted 3 times. And we'd normally be in the air, leaving the ground, or in the air by the 3rd blast. Because we had troops out there that needed help, that had gone down, and we were on our way. So we didn't have bunkers to keep our helicopters in at that point.
We had revetments that we kept ours in.
Do what?
We had revetments that we kept ours in.
Yeah. Most of ours were out. There might have been some that were in. But I don't think it was that particular occasion. It might have been. No, I don't think it was. In between our hooches, we had a kind of an underground, like my bed area was.
Yes.
It had it where everybody could get in. And I slept like the good Lord put me here. No clothes. And we had incoming, and I went running to the bunker one night and cut my little toe. Wasn't that bad. I let it go the next morning. And of course, normally when the incoming came in, it didn't last very long. But I went to first aid the next morning, looked at it, and the doctor said, well, if you'd come in last night, could have got a Purple Heart. And I'd heard about some of the guys, the damages they had because of incoming. And I said, I didn't deserve one. They do. And so, yeah, I could have got a Purple Heart, but I'm glad I didn't for that. I would have had a hard time telling people I got a Purple Heart for cutting my toe. But it was good. I liked Camp Evans. Of course, we got comfortable there. Then they moved us down to Fook Fen down south.
Why'd you move down south?
Question answered.
Well, why did you move down south?
Why was we moved? Yes. I was never informed of that. Wasn't privy to that information. Yeah. But I know we packed up and we flew everything down. And we lost one helicopter on the way down and got it slung back. The crew was fine and made it okay. But we flew from northern part of Vietnam to the southern part of Vietnam.
Fook Fen is just north of Saigon, though.
Yeah. Down that area.
What'd you do down there?
Same thing. Same thing, but we did it south instead of north.
What's the terrain difference between Camp Evans and Fook Fen?
Camp Evans seemed like it was more level ground. We weren't on kind of like a bank or a hill like we were up at Camp Evans. It was a little more flat ground in that that basic area where we was at.
What are the monsoons?
Oh, that's one of those trigger things. Monsoon is, it starts raining and it don't stop. It may rain for a day or two, it may rain for a month, it may rain for a day or two and slack off for a day or two and pour again. It was a drenching rain. One thing about it, we didn't fly during the heavy monsoons. Excuse me. And excuse me again. It was just a miserable time. You get, people here in the States might have rain for a couple of days and they complain. It is nothing like a monsoon in Vietnam. The one over there is a hard driving. Sometimes you can't see very far. Other times it's wet and the ground is soaked. You're in mud. water puddles. It's a miserable time. I really, to somebody that hadn't been there to explain it, I've explained it the best I could. It would be almost, those that are familiar with Joplin and the tornado they had here a year or so ago, without the tornado, just the wind and the rain would have been a good monsoon. But they had a tornado in it. It did a lot of damage. There would have been some damage with the monsoon, maybe a little bit, because of the wind. But take away the tornado and have a wind and rain like that, is the heart of it goes through. But picture that for days, and you got a monsoon.
Everything in my Foot Locker turned green from mold.
Oh.
In fact, we turned in dirty, wet fatigues, and we were issued clean, wet fatigues. We couldn't do laundry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you couldn't get out to do it.
No.
You could do it, but there's no place to dry it, unless you're in tent. And
Well,
I don't know how it was where you was at, but when the monsoon came, it wasn't a warm time. It was a wet,
yes.
Chilling time.
Yeah. I'm sorry. The fatigues were dry when we got them, but then you put them on and they were wet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
you couldn't get dry.
No.
We had trench foot.
Oh. I got one toenail on each foot from the rot. And the going through the mud and the water and just the terrain. I got ingrown toenails, and I've had all my toenails except for one, the next to my little toe on both feet, removed. And my feet, they just like now they dry up and just scratch. You can scratch it off or take a tool and remove it. And it's no fun. Feet hurt from the pads behind my toes. That whole pad area and my toes. Sometimes just numb. It gets miserable.
What's Agent Orange?
That is a chemical that was sprayed over in Vietnam. It kills plants, foliage, people. I went to VA and I requested examined for Agent Orange, and they sent me down to Muskogee. They went through some tests and some stuff, and this nurse that is almost a doctor, their physician's assistant, told me that I didn't have Agent Orange. Coming from VA, I understand that. That's their normal response. They don't want to tell you. I requested it again because I hear they got a better test and better way of finding out. And VA calls me back and says they have no test or no way of checking for that. It's funny that my wife's office manager's husband died from Agent Orange. It causes cancer to human beings. And they didn't declare him 100% until after he was dead. They sent his widow a letter saying that he had Agent Orange, and still they didn't want to do anything. So she went to a congressman, and he got full award of 100%. I'm still not satisfied that, you know, that I don't know for sure what I do or don't. And I need to talk to my DAV representative and see, you know, what they can do for me. I'm getting re-examined.
Where were you when Tet broke out?
Beg pardon?
Where were you when Tet broke out?
Evans, Camp Evans. And one of the towns that we kind of flew over and flew to a couple times was in kind of in the middle of Tet. It had, but we weren't flying in there during Tet. But you know, we'd heard that, you know, they got hit pretty hard during Tet.
What did you do during Tet?
Same old thing. Run missions and did what I was told. You know, I was a specialist 4, specialist 5. I took orders and, you know, did what I was told, you know, what I was told to do. One thing I didn't like is the orders that, you know, if we got fired upon when we was flying, we couldn't fire back. You know, we couldn't fire. So we're just targets up there. That's why I say it's a political war. You know, we were kind of on standby, you know, for anything that might happen. You know, we was on kind of an alert, but it didn't really hit Evans that bad. At least I don't recall it. You brought up more today than I've cared to remember since then. Because, you know, just something you really don't care to think about.
Well, I don't know.
And Camp Evans, other than that, ammo dump blowing and the incoming rounds occasionally, wasn't that bad. It was good being there at Evans.
Well, it was going to be a hard place for them to attack because it was just a massive American base.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, but, you know, then get down to Fuquay, do the same thing. But, you know, we didn't really have the incoming, well, it was about like at Evans, but didn't seem like it was as much. Of course, it was always at night. It had to wake us up. And today I still don't sleep at night. My wife gets up 6:30. I get her up and go to work. She gets to work around 8, a little before. And it's an hour drive from here into where she works. And when she gets to work, she calls and lets me know she's made it to work. So my mind's at ease that she made it to work. And I sleep from about 8 to 9:30. And I get my night's sleep during that time. And I maybe sleep off and on or have dreams and nightmares and whatever during the night about being over there in Vietnam, different things going on and different things I got into. You know, it sounds like I might have had a good time over there. You know, didn't have that much, but I have not got into the bad stuff on this. And care not to.
Okay. What's your best memory of Vietnam?
It's a beautiful country. I thought it would make a good vacation place if there wasn't a war going on. I've heard of several GIs that have gone back and say it's, you know, really changed the Saigon and Cameron and all of, oh, my legs are cramping. That's part of my problems.
Yeah.
That it's, you know, it's different over there. It didn't like it was when we was over there flying. Of course, one of the things that was nice going cross country and being on a helicopter. Of course, we was up, sometimes high, sometimes low. Sometimes we'd have to raise up a little bit to get over fence lines. We were doing Lima, low level, and like I say, you jump up to go over a fence line. Make sure your skids didn't catch the fence. You go Lima over trees, you raise up, go over a tree, and then back down, and going cross country. And then sometimes you did high fly, and you was up there, and you had your doors cut shut so it didn't get so cold. And especially in bad weather, you had the door shut. But normally, unless we was on a survival run, like for pop or beer and stuff, the doors were open, but we'd close them for that so nothing fell out.
Yeah.
Because you didn't want to get back and have somebody short.
Now, next question. If you care to answer, what is your worst memory of Vietnam?
I got one of them that's bad, and I got one that is really bad. We went out and picked up a couple of our troops that had some prisoners. They were interrogating on the way back, and we had doors open, and they were threatening to throw them out. One of them was wounded. And having to go through that, take them back, as far as the part of if they threw somebody out or not. If they did, I've blocked it in my memory because it's so horrendous. Goes against my religion and stuff to kill another human being like that just because they're not talking. Then once we did get back to base and the ones that were left got out, had them get soap and water and clean my floor where the blood was, because blood eats through those helicopters, and I would have had a hole if I hadn't cleaned the blood up. That I have more nightmares about, and sometimes I think they did throw somebody out, and sometimes they just threatened it almost. As of course, I'd shot at people on the ground when I was flying, and not knowing whether I hit them or not was a good consolation. And the one that's bad, where I really got my cherry busted, is, I told you about the CO or XO bailing out his helicopter in the middle of a rice paddy. Only one little hooch in the whole area. And we're on the ground, and I'm going over to the helicopter to do my thing, and we receive small arms fire from this hooch. And of course we had the infantry division, our infantry on the ground with us, and we had the Cobras in the sky and our UH-1Cs with the gunners in the sky and our Loaches. And if you know how fields go, rice paddies, you have your little ditch for them to be in. You have your little mounds and stuff. I felt like I'd have had to raise up to get out of one of those mounds. I was scared. And next thing I know, I've got metal falling all around me. One of our Cobras came over me, and I hear this, 4 rockets went into that hooch. and his Gatling gun going off. Made it safe. And that was I hadn't been in the country a month, and I'm going through this, and not knowing. And but I got the helicopter slung out of there, and got back to base. But that was a scary time. I don't know if you'd call it my worst. At the time, it was, because I'd only been in the country less than a month. But that carrying the Vietnamese prisoners, okay.
Okay. How long were you in Vietnam?
I was there a year.
A year. When did you get your discharge?
About 7 months after I got back to the States.
What'd you do in the States after Vietnam?
I went back to Fort Rucker.
Okay.
And I was in headquarters company there.
What'd you do?
My assignment was work at the USO. And I had a E6 that was my supervisor, and he lived off base with his family. And he was a good man. He guided me well. If you say you got a mentor or somebody that's guiding you well, he was. He got me there, and he moved to something else, and they stepped me up to take his place there. And I still had an E5. I did that for quite a while. I took post office exam or training and exam, and had it set up to where I could go to a post office and work. I didn't follow through on it. I should have, but I didn't.
So you discharged when?
I'm getting my dates mixed up.
Would you spend 3 years in the Army?
I spent 3 years in.
So it'd be November '69?
November '69 is when I got out. Yeah, March is when I went to Vietnam, and November is when I went to service, because I hadn't been in basics very long, and then we got sent home for Christmas.
What did you think about all these anti-Vietnam demonstrations here when you got back?
I didn't care for it. I didn't get involved. Yes, I didn't like going to Vietnam. I thought it was a political war. It was still a political war. But I put my 6 months in, or my 2 6 months in, and made it home. And just kind of back up there a little bit. The day that I sat in it on K, waiting to go back to Cameron Bay to fly home. No, I sat in it Phuc Phin at the flight line, waiting to fly back to An Khê to fly to Cameron Bay to fly home. Down bird siren went off. Of course, I didn't go. I had orders waiting on the plane, and they went out and got it back. When I was down at An Khê, run into somebody else that had been there before that. I don't remember if it was shipping back home or going on R&R. It was my bird that went down, lost the whole crew. You don't think that is a weary thought? That if I'd have flown one more day, it could have been me. The Lord had a reason for me making it. Okay.
What'd you do after Vietnam, after you got out of the Army?
Well, I kind of messed up while I was still in the Army, the last month, so, and kind of an Article 15, but it wasn't. This friend of mine I told you was E6. My dad and I think he was probably a major or higher. You know what that means. Because one time I was in the barracks and he says, you know the guy that's in your cubicle area? Because we had 4 on one side of the wall and 4 on the other. I said, yeah. He's got a cast on his arm? He said, yeah. He doesn't do a whole lot, does he? I said, no. But he says he does a lot of watching. He knows what's going on. He was an officer. So, this Article 15 I got, which I never saw it again. I know they called me in to do KP, or not KP duty, but clean the orderly room. And I was told I wouldn't have to do any of that stuff. I did it that night. The sergeant that was over me talked to him the next day, and he found out that I wasn't supposed to do that. I was confined to company area, my barracks, and didn't lose any rank.
What was the Article 15 for? Or
Well,
should I ask?
I had left base because I had a pass. I left base and was kind of a ways and with my girlfriend to see her parents, or some of her family. My stepfather passed away, and they were trying to find me, and they couldn't find me. So that's where this came from. But like I say, I lost no money. I didn't lose any rank. I did no duties. I was confined to quarters for the remainder of my tour. And I never saw any more about this Article 15. And I believe it all has to do with the first sergeant and the C6. But I'm assigned to the company, and one of the E5s, or Specialist 5 E5, was doing, what is it when you're in charge overnight?
CQ?
CQ. Was in charge of CQ. Well, I could be in charge of CQ, and he had something he wanted to do, so I did CQ for him, and I got in trouble for that. He said, the first sergeant says, you are assigned to quarters, no duties. But I did get to go to Dawson and to the car agency, take my car down to get my radio fixed, and come back. But I was very fortunate. The Lord has looked after me in many ways during the time and since I've been home. Okay, I think your question was what did I do after I got back? I went to school at Okmulgee State Tech for auto mechanics and service rider.
Service rider.
Service rider. In other words, when you pull into an agency, somebody comes out and gets your information. That's a service rider. Okay. So I did that, and then I switched to doing new car make ready, servicing in new cars. And I had to be the one when transport brought one in and unloaded it. I had to check it to make sure there's no damage and nothing wrong with it, and sign off for it. I lucked out a couple times and was able to snake some stuff through, but most of the time did good. I got in with the Tulsa Auxiliary Police. I'd always been, even before I went to the military, a backer of law enforcement, and knew a lot of troopers, a lot of commissioners, a lot of chiefs in the highway patrol, and so I got on with the Tulsa Auxiliary Police. And there's also part of it was the civil defense, and went through the academy for that. Then while I was in Okmulgee, I worked with the police department down there, and was a special officer. And then that helped me with my civil defense up here. Then when I was down in Ada, after that, I went through with the sheriff's office down there, the cleat training again. This is the third time. And so went through the training and was reserve officer for the county down there. And then I worked for the assistant chief as doing security at night, besides working for General Tire during the day. Busy life. Came back to Tulsa and worked at Osteopathic Hospital, which is OSU Medical Center now, and doing security, and run into a lieutenant with the police or with the sheriff's office that I knew, and told him that I was back in town, I was going to get established again, and put in an application to the sheriff's office. He told me to get down there and get the application in. I did, and between him and my background, working with the Okmulgee PD and Okmulgee County, and working with the Pontotoc County, I got on the sheriff's office. And I worked in the jail 4 months. The next 8 months, I worked in courts. And a rarity, within a year after signing on, everybody started in the jail. Then you went to court guard, then you went to field. A year after I started, I went to field and serving papers. And did that for about 5 to 7 years. And then went back in as a corporal. Well, I went back in and made corporal. And worked in the jail, basically finishing out my time. And the main jail, they would do shakedowns. Well, I was working on an exercise crew, and when we couldn't take the prisoners out for exercise, we just kind of in limbo. So we'd come in and do these shakedowns. The lieutenant would say, I got Conrad coming in to head up a shakedown in whatever area that, he'd suggest an area, then we'd shake down basically whatever we could in the time we had. And between that lieutenant and some sergeants and the lieutenant that got me started, I made corporal and went back to jail as corporal. And was there until I retired.
Retired when?
I retired in 81. Wait a minute. I started in 80 and I retired in 91. Okay. I had about 12 years in. Okay. I could retire, get full benefits, my badge, my gun, and my commission. And I did, work. And I worked, after I retired, I worked for Bank 4 and doing security as a CPO officer because I had law enforcement background. It was their lead group. And did that and just did kind of nothing for several months. And I went out to Albuquerque, New Mexico and lived with my brother and his wife. And then my brother passed away and I came back to Tulsa. Well, he got deathly ill with cancer. And he was diagnosed as massive heart attack. That's what actually killed him, but he had prostate cancer. So I moved back to Tulsa and did some private guard work. Then I went back to New Mexico to help my niece out, which was in a wheelchair, and her husband was. And then I came back to Tulsa, and that's where I've been up until I moved over here to Manford. Um, I've mostly done security work since I retired, or law enforcement. Oh, after I came back, I went back to work for this whacking hat that I was doing for the banks for. I was doing security for them. Went back to work for them, and got on at Utica Square Security in Tulsa, which is owned by Helmerich and Payne, which make drilling rigs and stuff. And I ended up working for an outside agency for them for like a couple of weeks, and some people liked my work and told me, we want you full time with us. And they ended up putting me over to another building where some of the group had moved to, and they assigned me over there.
In Utica Square?
No, this is, the corporate office was across the street from Utica Square.
Okay.
And they sent me over to Boulder Towers, where the corporate office is now.
Okay.
They tore down the old building, but to part of the group that moved over there to be security there. They dismissed a lady that was causing problems, and they was afraid of problems, so they had me over there for 2 weeks. Some of the people there called over, said, you need to put this guy on full time. And so I went back. In Utica Square, you can only drive it so many ways and so long until it's boring. And so I went over and looked at the guard desk over across the street at the corporate office. Of course, I had to work with computer, which I knew nothing about computers. And I said, if I can have this spot, I'll go full time. And I got that spot, went full time, and I was there probably a year. Every time I turned around, they'd send somebody over there to train. And I was always afraid they was going to send somebody over there to take my place. And the captain told me, says, we can't replace you. The personnel won't let us. Their office was on the first floor with me. The upstairs, the 14th floor, where the CEO, the president, chairman of the board, and legal weren't letting me go. They liked the job I did for them, and being retired law enforcement, they liked. When they moved downtown to Boulder Towers, where the corporate office is now, they had my own office up there where I could see the lobby. I had a window there where I could see the lobby, what's going on, protect the secretary, protect Hans Helmerich, the CEO, Walt Helmerich III, the chairman of the board, which was both of them were great people. Hans we lost last year, or Walt we lost, Helmerich III we lost last year. I understand that Hans has moved up to chairman of the board now in his spot, and we got a good man that I worked with as CEO.
I'd like to do a word association.
Okay, but I retired from there after 10 years service.
Okay.
They haven't replaced me. And one other thing I'm going to do, because I got into law enforcement, I joined back in 1971, Oklahoma Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. Last year, I've got about 43 years in continuous service. I've worked door prize committee. The year before, I was nominated for life member. Last year, I was presented my badge. It says life member on it. It's got my name and gold card, and with for life member. And so I'm a life member from now on. Okay.
I'd like to do a word association. I'm going to give you some words and you give me your reaction. The first one is Fort Leonard Wood.
Cold.
Fort Carson.
I liked it out there. The snow be going, and you could roll the window down and have your arm hanging out, and big old snowflakes going out there covering everything.
Ankei.
I didn't like their tower. Lapel, or where you jumped off of and slid down the rope.
First of the ninth.
Loved it. Great outfit.
1st Air Cavalry.
I like 1st Cav. I don't have any others to compare them to, but it's always good to me. And I'm proud to say I was with 1st Cav.
Camp Evans.
The fireworks show.
UH-1H.
It's a good helicopter. And I got some stick time. I got, probably 100 hours stick time. Of course, none of it's on record because I was enlisted. But this, chief pilot and the XO pilot would let me fly. First time they let me fly into the POL to fuel up. I've got my gunner back there that is flying as crew chief at that time, but I fly in and I have to sit there and hover, waiting to go down and sit down to get fuel. And here I'm looking out and to my right, and there's that big tank. If that blade hits that tank, it's all over with. Well, never hit and did good, and I did that two or three times. But okay, go ahead.
Vietnam.
Political. I don't think we should have been there. As far as liking it, I didn't. The good part is, if there wasn't a war, it'd been pretty country. But the first reaction, hate it.
Lyndon Johnson.
Either him or Lady Bird got rid of Kennedy.
Richard Nixon.
I think he was another good president. Some of his people led him astray. I think he was a good president. I hated that he had to resign.
How do you want to be remembered?
Oh, great. Wish you'd give me some time to think about that. I know I've had 3 marriages that flopped, divorced from. I've got me a wonderful wife now. I got 4 kids through her marriage that are hers, and they treat me like I'm their dad. Their dad's passed away. I got 4 grandkids, 4 granddaughters, and January 2nd of 13, I'm going to have a grandson. My 18-year-old daughter that lives with us finishes high school this year. And, well, in 13. When I first became part of the family, I wanted her involved, because if it was going to work, she had to be involved. When I first got involved, if she wanted something, she kept nagging until she got it, or she would cry until she got it. I came up with the 3 ask rule. The 3rd time, you're definitely not going to get what you're asking for. Because come the 3rd time, I will definitely not let you do what you want. On the crying, I said, I've been numb. Well, I just say, crying doesn't bother me. Go ahead and cry. But you're not going to get to me by crying. You know, I've done law enforcement. I've had girls cry. When I've stopped them, I've arrested drunks and crying, and picked up mentals and taken them to the hospital, Veneta, the hospital. You go through my shoes, yeah, I might let you cry and get by with it, but you're just learning. I've tried to teach her and to work towards, because one of these days she's going to be out on her own. been trying to get her ready for it. Hopefully, it's working. I think some of it is. I'm seeing more responsibility. I see more grown up out of her here lately than there was. She's a wonderful girl. I've told her she can come to me with anything. She can come home and tell me she's pregnant. She can come home and tell me she killed somebody. She can come home and tell me anything. And I will never stop loving her. She's got my love no matter what. I said, I can be mad at you. I can be upset. I can be disappointed. One thing I'm going to have is my love for you, all you kids. I've got a son that's next up that is living in our house. We're living in an apartment, so he can live in our house. His trailer was falling apart. He loved that house. He was going to buy it. Now his wife's got a good job. They're talking about moving. So we're going to get back in our house. I've got another daughter that is having the baby January 2nd. It's giving me 2 granddaughters. And I've got a daughter that lives next door in the apartment next door that has given me 2 granddaughters. She's the oldest. She's given me some problems. She probably thought I hate her, but I still have the same love for her as I do with the 18-year-old, as I do for all the kids.
Anything else you want to talk about?
Well, my second wife and I had a son, and he didn't want anything to do with me. He cusses me out. When we had the fire here last August, he talked to me for about 3 or 4 words. That's a hard love. He is my flesh and blood. He is my son. But he didn't want what goes with it. And I would like to acknowledge him back in the family. The wife and I have discussed it many times. He's cussed her, and I don't go for that. And I even let him and my 18-year-old daughter converse back and forth by email, texting each other. Or not me email, but texting each other. And until he got drunk and started texting obscene things and things that he shouldn't, which if I'd have gone to Channel 2 and told the weather, whoever's over the weather department what he'd done, he probably wouldn't be working there now. I gave him a break because of my son, and I've told her not to have any more contact with him. And one thing she doesn't do, she does not lie to me. She knows that's one thing I won't stand for. But I still wouldn't give up my love for her. Yeah. You know, if she hears from him, she lets me know. We had to basically keep it a secret from him, because she'd hear from him, she'd let me know. But if she'd have told him that I knew, then it'd be off.
Well, this is a very good interview. I want to thank you for your service and thank you for the interview.
Well, thank you for your service and thank you for your time.
And again, this is December 13th, 2012. My name is Joe Todd. This has been an interview with Kenneth Conrad in Manford, Oklahoma. Thank you.
Thank you.